Back down the pulse, looking at all things people, power, and politics. Here to talk about a number of hot political topics. Democratic State Representative Noah Arbit and Troy Mayor Ethan Baker. They were joking during this live commercial break here. 7 minutes? How are we going to fit all this in? Well, we'll get as far as we can. Let's start with the news of the day in Greenland. Look, here's the deal. If this ends up happening the way it could, you have NATO that says we'll protect Greenland. Then you have President Trump in the United States saying we're coming in and we're going to grab Greenland. Canada is a part of NATO. So that puts the U.S. pitted up against Canada, which puts us in a very precarious situation. As the mayor of Troy, neighbors to Canada right here in Metro Detroit, what do you make of the potential of what could happen here?
Oh, I think if you play out the worst case scenarios, they are terrible. There's no denying that. I mean, you talk about the doomsday approach and how that looks and what people are really feeling in our community. There's no question people on, all across the spectrum politically are feeling the fear of potentially what could happen.
You think there are Republicans who
I do. I think there are Republicans. They're not going to be as vocal about it. But sure, there are people who don't necessarily understand what the president's doing. I'm still hopeful that there is some master plan here and strategy going on to bring the countries together. President's in Davos tomorrow. He's speaking with world leaders. He's speaking to the world leaders, among others. I'm hoping that there's some conversation that's going to come from that will then spin things back and get us in a place where it makes a little bit more sense. And I remain hopeful of that.
What is that place that makes more sense to you, Noah Arbit, Representative?
Hands off Greenland. I mean, the United States has an agreement with the Kingdom of Denmark that we can use the Danish territory of Greenland for military purposes, and if there's any other purposes that the United States needs to, exploit Greenland for, whether it's, the minerals, like we can make that agreement with the Kingdom of Denmark. But the president seems to have this preoccupation with expanding the map, and it seems to be all about his legacy and his, pretensions to history as to being a president who expanded the map. There's nothing that the Kingdom of Denmark can do to negotiate with a madman.
Could this be?
I don't think this is about just expanding the map. I do think there are legitimate national security interests.
We have an agreement with the Kingdom of Denmark. And there's nothing more that needs to happen. There's no change of status that is dictating the reason why this president has been so bellicose.
There's
right?
no change of status.
He wrote to the Prime Minister of Norway.
There's no change of status that the three of us sitting here at this table necessarily know about. I do think there are issues facing with Russia and China, the Canadian government now.
No one is more happy about this than the Russians.
But if
this divide in NATO,
this is
Vladimir Putin's happiest day.
Hold on. If Russia ends up having an interest in Greenland, and the United States is saying we're aware of that, and we want to do something to protect the United States.
Then why isn't why did the president hold up funding for Ukraine? If the president cares about forestalling Russian aggression, he needs to be funding Ukraine and our defense of Ukraine instead of tearing NATO, the most successful military alliance in history, apart. It's Vladimir Putin's happy day.
Mayor Ethan Baker, could this be one of those things where President Trump is overextending his ambition in order to try to broker some kind of a deal?
Consistently, that's what he does. I'm hopeful that, again, that is what he's doing.
So what would that deal kind of look like to you?
There's clearly, he's taken issue with NATO. He's taken issue with what the European Union, what every country is not doing their fair share, as he likes to talk about it. I think there's something related to that. I think it also has to relate with China and Russia. And now we see Prime Minister Carney in Canada, taking big steps against the United States, essentially. It is a threat. I understand your passion. I understand your fear. I also understand that there are big issues here that we all have to, we can't get stuck with the talking points and get stuck with the back and forth.
This isn't about talking points.
No, but it is.
It's about the United States changing its global face as to now being an enemy state of the people and of the states of the countries that have been our allies.
Representative, do you believe
for 70 years?
Representative, you believe full-heartedly from your core that is the full intention here, and the president's not using this as a way to overextend ambition and then walk it back to do some kind of a negotiation?
Listen, the president is clearly mentally unwell. He wrote to the Prime Minister of Norway stating that the reason why he's taken an interest in Greenland is because he didn't get the Nobel Peace Prize.
Mayor Ethan Baker, there are plenty of Republicans out there who saw that and literally shook their head and said, that is ridiculous.
I agree. And I'm not a Republican who has ever, I've never stood by his conduct. It fascinates me in a terrible way at times, too. But
that is wrong, right? We can agree at this table. Hold on, Noah. We can agree
it is wrong. I do think it's wrong to make light of the situations. I think it's wrong to share private text messages to try to prove a point. I think there are mistakes that the president makes that anybody makes in that situation. But he tends to have a consistency in doing things the way that most people are not comfortable with.
What this is going to result in is the suicide of a superpower. We are now the global stupid power is really what we are. I mean, we are losing our allies. Do you understand what it would mean if we actually invaded Greenland and we lose our bases, our naval bases and our army bases in Europe? We will have no force protection in projection in Europe, in the Middle East, and Asia for people who care about Israel's security. We will not be able to protect Israel or deter any.
Listen, I understand. You're talking about the worst-case scenario. I want to ask you about the short-term worst-case scenario. When you're tariffing 8 nations that are critical to the U.S. economy, what does that do to the U.S. dollar? What are you concerned about that?
Well, you saw what happened to the stock market today, and you see the bond market. It's going to be poorly affected, and I think that the president will respond in kind and realize that's a bad idea. He tends to do that. He puts out these big threats of tariffs, liberation, he goes to them, and then he sees the reaction on the economic level and he pulls back. I think that's
it's time for Congress to step in.
This president has walked back a lot on things that he first boldly proposed and then walked back because he can't do everything that he says he wants to do.
Well, he went and got Maduro from Venezuela.
Yeah,
you have to wonder why European allies would not take this deadly seriously as they are now.
I want to talk about.
It's time for Congress to step in and invoke the 25th Amendment.
Another serious issue right now that's happening is in Minnesota.
Right, because the Congress is weak and ineffectual and in hock to their leader.
No, it's such a close split in the Congress. Even so, if it was the other way around, the Democrats would.
We have a minute left. I want to talk about Minneapolis. What are your concerns about the sovereignty issues of the state sovereignty? When you have Governor Walz, whether you like the guy or not, basically saying, I got my National Guard troops here, and you got President Trump saying, hey, I may pull the Insurrection Act over here. That puts this country in a pretty precarious situation. Are you worried about that?
Absolutely. It's a tinderbox always when you start pitting military companies against each other, essentially, from the state or the federal level. I don't think the president's going to use the Insurrection Act. I saw your previous guest talk about what would likely happen before that. I think that's great information.
30 seconds left.
I think you have to laugh when you have a president who's trying to incite a civil war, a world war, and claims that he should be eligible for the Nobel Peace Prize, right? I mean, this is really what we're looking at. I mean, this is an intensely febrile moment. And the president, every time he is faced with opposition or, to a decision that he makes, he pours gasoline on the flames and makes the situation worse.
From Minneapolis,
the most irresponsible person to be in charge of the United States right now.
From Minneapolis, and both of you unapologetic about your feelings, about perhaps a more tempered approach you think that perhaps the president will take, you saying he's going to follow his bold promises from Greenland to Minneapolis. We're watching it carefully. Noah Arbit, State Rep. Mayor Ethan Baker of Troy, thank you both for your time here tonight on The Pulse. Another move the Trump administration says could help home buyers, how it could impact your 401k. Could you tap into your 401k to help pay for a house? The president of RE/MAX of Southeast Michigan, Jeanette Schneider, Matthew Schneider's relative, sister-in-law, on The Pulse next.